I am new to this. I've never vlogged before. I have a blog that's public, but I don't really share it with anyone. I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder at age 26. I'm now almost 34 years old, and I've been in therapy, very intense therapy, for the last 4 years. So I've gained a lot of coping skills. I've gained a lot of self-awareness, and I thought that it was finally time to deal with my post-traumatic stress. And so I started EMDR therapy last week. And it's basically where you focus on a certain feeling of your past, of something that you want to deal with. Mine right now, I really want to deal with fear of abandonment because it's something that hinders my life on an almost daily basis. And I'm done feeling that way. So I have to sit with the most recent time that I had felt abandoned, and it hurts. It's all resonated in my chest and the pain that I feel. And then after I have that feeling, I did visual last week. It's a little bit more intense than the physical. And so this week I decided to do the tappers instead of following the thing back and forth, just because it was a little bit more intense. However, the tappers, I think, made things a little bit more vulnerable for me since I had my eyes closed. It brought back a very, very strong flashback that was extremely painful, that I have suppressed for a very, very long time. Something that my father had did to me a few days after my 13th birthday, so that was extremely painful. It was as if I was reliving it again, and it's not a good feeling. But you have to remember with EMDR to keep one foot in the present and don't get lost in the past. That's very, very important. It's also extremely important to stay consistent once you start EMDR. So I refuse to give up on this, no matter how painful it is, knowing that eventually the pain will reside and go away is something I look forward to. That's what keeps me going. It wasn't as traumatic afterwards as it was last week, being the first session last week. But it was, and still is, a little traumatic, which is why I'm deciding to vlog about it for the first time ever. I won't get into details, though. That's something that I couldn't even do in the session. I almost had to put my hand up and stop the session, and we were only 5 minutes in. That's how intense the feelings were. I can only imagine, what someone without borderline would feel like going through that, because our feelings are 100 times more intense than an average person, which I wouldn't change it, just because the one thing I love about feeling so strongly is that you can love somebody extreme and so unconditional. It's like the strongest love that anyone can get is from a borderline. And I try to focus on the positive sides of having this disorder, rather than focusing on the negatives. And that has helped me through a lot. I'm sorry if I go all over the place, by the way, because I've got ADHD, so I cannot stay with like one conversation. I'll go all over the place and have squirrel moments constantly. So, yeah. It also made me, at the end, realize that I still have some pretty hateful feelings, and I haven't forgiven my mother for abandoning me when I needed her most, which was about a couple months after that, when I opened up to her and told her what had happened. And I understand I was a difficult child. Of course, I was dealing with a lot. I didn't understand. I thought it was my fault. I thought there was something wrong with me. What did I do to cause this? And I know I didn't cause anything for that to happen. And there is nothing wrong with me that had me, or made it to where I deserved for that to happen. I know that. But when I was 13, I was so confused. I was lost. I was angry. I felt betrayed. I didn't understand. And so I lashed out emotionally, and I behaved in certain ways that was really difficult for my mom. And I understand that. But I'm not excusing what she had did, because a few years ago I had found out that the reason why she gave me up to state's custody was because my brother's father at the time said it's either her or me, and she chose him. So she put me in uni at that time, and then after that I ended up in state's custody. So I spent my whole adolescence pretty much in state's custody, where I didn't trust anyone, and I sat with all those feelings, and I couldn't talk about them. I just learned how to suppress everything instead of dealing with it. I learned how to tell therapists what I thought they wanted to hear. I was never completely open and honest with therapists until about 4 years ago. So, yeah, it's been a long, tough road, but I am very proud of where I am today. And I also had a new thing arise today as well from the session. I ended up with this strong urge of actually wanting to go find my father and confront him face to face. And I'm not a person that likes to deal with confrontation. I usually avoid it at all costs, or I'll hide behind my phone while dealing with confrontation. But I've never wanted to or liked to do face-to-face confrontation. It just always made me feel uncomfortable. It hurt. It's just too overwhelming, too much. But I really want to find him now, and I really want to confront him. And I don't know if that's a good idea. I mean, she did say that you don't have to go with those feelings and actually confront him, although I feel like I really, really want to. Probably not going to. But, yeah. Borderline is extremely hard to live with. Although I do want to tell people that are newly diagnosed with it, don't be scared like I was. Like, I remember when I was first diagnosed, I looked it up and I read, and it scared me, and I never looked at it again. I just shoved it down like I do with everything. I don't do that so much anymore. I try to deal with things when it happens instead of shoving them down, because we all know what that does. It just causes more problems later on in life, and then you have to do EMDR, and then you have to feel every single ounce of pain from every trauma that just arises. Like, you have no control what pops up. It comes. Whatever just opens up and it comes out. There's no stopping it. There is hope. I do remember that I thought there was no hope. I used to really, really think all black or all white, meaning all positive or all negative. And I've come a long way where I can actually find that gray area. It's hard, very hard. However, I can find it, and it's pretty awesome when you do. Like, it feels almost weird and out of the normal, like you're so used to either thinking all negative or all positive that when you're finally able to find that gray, happy medium of positive and negative, it feels weird. But it's also nice. And I have also gone back and forth with questioning whether or not I'm doing something right or if I'm doing something wrong. And I use distractions, and I'll read books, and I'll watch videos to learn more. And I feel like I will never be done bettering myself, and I'm okay with that. I'm happy with continuing to better myself. I'm happy with where I am today. Yes, I still deal with a lot. And one of those things, the biggest things, would be fear of abandonment. And I still struggle with emotional regulation. Like, anger is something, it's still very hard to contain. However, I am able to contain it. Sadness creeps up, and then I have to try to balance back out, because if I don't, then it puts me in this very deep, deep depression. And if I get to that very, very deep depression, there's almost no way of getting out for a little bit. So I try to avoid it at all costs to let it get that far. And that's where the self-awareness comes in. As if you become very self-aware, then it's a lot easier to notice when you're headed a certain way, so that you can hurry up and stop it before it gets too bad. Communication has been something that's very good and helpful as well. Instead of letting it just sit and resonate and just get worse, I try to just communicate the best I can when something comes up or a certain way that I'm feeling. I try to communicate it and talk about it, whether it's with a friend, my brother, or my boyfriend at the time right now. Like, I just try not to just sit on things, because if I do, it gets bad. And then it puts me in a depression. And God, it's like this vicious cycle that if you don't pinpoint exactly what's happening when it starts happening, and you don't try to use your coping skills to stop it, it will unravel, and it will become a big mess. And that's one thing I've also learned, is it is okay for you to spiral when you are in recovery. It's gonna happen. Don't shame yourself. Don't feel bad about it. I know it's extremely hard to not shame yourself, especially when you're first started out with therapy, because I did that. I thought I was doing good, and man, I was going to therapy literally 5 times a week. Once for individual therapy, actually, so that was like 6. Because I would go to every group therapy they had imaginable, like one for mindfulness, one for CBT, which is like for depression and all of that. Like, I went to every single one of the therapies in the first couple of years. And they had one Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then I'd have my individual therapy on top of that. So that was my first 2 years. And I also did dialectical behavioral therapy, which is DBT, short version. And that is where I actually picked up quite a bit of my coping skills. I never got to finish it. However, I do plan on going to it again, because in that short time that I did go, I picked up a lot of coping skills, and it's extremely, extremely helpful. So yes, that is very important. You gotta find that motivation to actually go. You've got to, how do I explain it? You've got to want to go. You've got to want to go to therapy. You've got to want to better yourself. You have to get to that point within yourself and find it of wanting to do it, or it's not going to work. Because I've tried therapy in the past before, multiple times, and I didn't have that mindset. I didn't really, I knew I wanted to go to therapy because I was having issues. I wanted to deal with certain things. But then when I got there, I had the motivation. I didn't stick with it. So you've got to find it within yourself to actually want to go. And as I'm running up to almost 16 minutes now, I'm going to end it on that. Don't give up. Keep going. And I know it's hard.